Thank you for visiting PowerfulInterviews.com, your number one resource for life-changing information you won't find anywhere else. There will be more powerful audio interviews added each week. Check out our blog for updates.
Good morning, everyone. This is Arthur Robinson Jr. I'm the creator of PowerfulInterviews.com and I'm a partner of NationalDiversified.com. And today, I have another special interview for each and every one of you. Today, I have a wonderful person on the show, and she's a great friend of mine. Her name is Dr. Diane Hamilton. And for those that don't know Dr. Diane, let me explain to each and every one of you about this incredible, phenomenal woman. Dr. Diane Hamilton is an award-winning speaker, nationally syndicated radio host, powerful author, and educator. Her radio show, Take the Lead, showcases successful individuals, including C-suite executives, phenomenal billionaires, Time Magazine's most influential people of the world, as well as a host of Forbes 30 Under 30 inductees, Nobel Peace Prize nominees, New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling authors, and other successful individuals who share their stories and insights. Dr. Diane Hamilton is the best-selling author of two phenomenal books. The first book is called It's Not You, It's Your Personality, and the other phenomenal book, which I love the title, How to Reinvent Your Career, and that is an awesome, impressive resume. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the beautiful Dr. Diane Hamilton to the show.
Wow, thank you. That's quite an introduction. I need to put that on a video clip and put that on my show. It's so nice to have you here, Arthur.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Diane Hamilton, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the listeners worldwide about building wealth and about your phenomenal brand. Take the lead. I gladly appreciate it.
Well, it's really interesting how much alike as our guests are and some of the stuff that we do. We had a little time to chat before this, and I really am looking forward to seeing what we have in common based on who we've interviewed and the types of background that we have. The Take the Lead has just been a really fun radio show. It took off way faster than I had anticipated, and a lot of that was based on working with Forbes. I was an MBA program chair at the Forbes School of Business and ran their speaker program as far as setting up speakers and interviewing them there, and that kind of snowballed into other things that I enjoyed doing, such as interviewing. So how long have you been interviewing? Did you say it's been a decade, right?
Yes, I've been interviewing since '07.
Yeah, wow, that's a long time.
Yes, and we have a lot of things in common because we had a lot of phenomenal great guests that's both been on our programs. And I appreciate you coming on my show today and sharing your wisdom with my listeners.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Dr. Diane Hamilton is going to break down layman's terms about the power of building great relationships, and we're going to talk about her two phenomenal books, It's Not You, It's Your Personality, and How to Reinvent Your Career. Is that correct, Dr. Diane?
Yes, I mean the most recent one was the personality book. I actually wrote one before that about online learning, but it wouldn't be applicable probably in this kind of setting. But I've written 3 books, and I'm actually working on my 4th about curiosity, but it's yet to be named. But I'm working on that right now.
Wow. Now, what I'd like to know, and can you explain to the listeners in layman's terms, who is the beautiful Dr. Diane Hamilton? How long you been in your powerful industry, and what is your expertise?
Well, let's see. Let's start. I like your enthusiasm. I actually have been in the business world. I was in sales for many decades and worked in several industries, everything from computers, a lot of different versions of sales, pharmaceuticals, and ended up in lending and real estate. A couple different changes there, but very strongly focused on sales and marketing. Got into education later in life. I was very interested in teaching online education because I really love to learn, but I don't really love to sit through lectures. And I thought there's going to be a lot of other people like that. And when online education came out, I immediately was drawn to it. I've been teaching in the online arena since 2006.
Wow.
And I've taught for probably a dozen universities, and I've taught more than 1,000 business courses throughout my teaching career. That led to running the MBA program at Forbes, which was really interesting as well, because I got to learn a whole different aspect of the education industry as far as how everything works outside of just teaching the course. And there's a lot more to it, and it's very complicated and takes a lot of dedication to run those programs. And so that was really fascinating. One of the things I really enjoyed in that job was running their speaker program and getting some really fascinating people coming to the school to speak to students and to the local communities. And that developed my interest, of course, in doing more interviewing. I did some speaking for Forbes and some other groups prior to that, and had done a lot of consulting also as part of when I wrote my books. And I've gone to many companies to teach them different aspects of business communications and behavioral topics. My focus is on engagement, soft skills, and culture, things like generational differences, millennials, boomers, conflict, things like that. So it's been a really fun journey to go through different aspects. I mean, I don't just do one thing. I get to do a bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. And it makes you a better instructor and a better speaker, because you have just so many different sources of input. So it's kind of all, it all intertwines and makes for a very interesting day. Let's put it that way.
Now, you helped Steve Forbes formulate his speaker training program, and basically you was a part of that phenomenal MBA program at the Steve Forbes brand. And I love focusing on my own MBA, which MBA stands for Mega Bank Account. And I know that over the years you developed your own Mega Bank Account. Can you explain to the audience what was the most important day of your life when you experienced financial freedom?
Well, I couldn't say it's just one day. I think it's a culmination of different things that lead to a point where you go, well, I don't have to do just this thing or that thing, and you don't feel like you're restricted in what you can do. I think you pay the piper sometimes and you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. And I never was one that had a problem with working hard to get to the next level, to learn the next thing. I was never one to want to climb the ladder so much as just learn something new. And when you open up your mind to curiosity at just learning things, the doors open for you. Whether you're looking for money or not looking for money, it comes your way because people realize that your motives are good. You're not just doing it for the money. And that has, I think, once you realize that you're doing it for better reasons, I think that's when the enlightenment comes, where you're not just trying to see how much money you can get.
Wow. Dr. Diane, can you explain to the listeners what is the best advice that you have ever received?
Boy, I've had so many people give me great advice. I think, as you get older, you tend to realize that you don't focus so much on failure, if you will fail, or what that means to fail. I think that a lot of people let themselves be, they stop because they're afraid of, well, if I don't do this perfectly, that it's not worth doing. And I don't agree with that. I don't really believe in failure. I think you learn something from everything, even if it's not super successful. I think that some people have said, to me, that done is better than perfect. And that's not to say that you don't want to do a great job, but I think some people are very hard on themselves, and I know I was when I was younger, that I didn't see that what I did was as good as what other people saw. You tend to think, well, I could do better. But if you sit there and you plan the plan and you just keep planning and you don't get it done because you're trying to make it too perfect, then you're stuck. So you don't want that. You want to just realize that, if you do it at your best level and you don't force yourself to be completely perfect at everything, it's better to just figure out the process and try to get it done at your best and not be paralyzed by worrying about failure.
Wow. Yes, I think failure and success pretty much goes hand in hand. And when it comes to building your brand, you got to be prepared for a lot of rejection. But I don't focus on the no's. I just focus on the yeses.
Yeah, well, you definitely contact a lot of people. I mean, I imagine that you seem to be pretty brave. You have some pretty amazing people on your show. And if they say no, do you go back and ask them again?
Oh, yes. When it comes to building long-term relationships and basically building wealth, the money is in the follow-up. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you catch people on a bad day, and and they might be more willing to say yes on a different day. You just never know. You can't give up too easily.
That's right. Basically, giving up and failure is not an option.
Well, you do learn a lot from the things that don't work out. Sometimes you meet people that turn you down and you think, later you think, wow, I'm glad they did turn me down because that probably wasn't a good way to go anyway. So sometimes it works out in your favor.
Now, Dr. Diane, you basically are a phenomenal host with your nationally syndicated radio show titled Take the Lead. Can you explain to the audience what inspired you to do your own nationally syndicated radio show? And I know that you are basically building relationships and you had phenomenal successful billionaires on your show. You had Dr. Steve Kerr on your show. You have Kenneth Fisher on your show. You had Naveen Jain, where he's actually been on my show as well. How did you start rubbing shoulders with these centers of influencers? And can you break down layman's terms about what inspired you to really focus on doing a nationally syndicated radio show titled Take the Lead?
Well, it's I had been interviewing people, Ken Fisher and others, as part of Forbes' work and I really liked interviewing, and I hadn't really thought about actually having my own show. I'd been on other people's shows just because of my books and things. People had interviewed me. And when I left working as the MBA program chair, I went in to do more speaking to develop my consulting and speaking business. And I was going to increase, my website with different videos and different things to make it a little more appealing because I hadn't updated it in a while. So I started to have people interview me again, and right away I had Jim Beach who interviewed me, and he has a great show on entrepreneurship and startups and that type of thing. And after the show, I told him, that I've been doing interviewing, and I really found it interesting because his show was nationally syndicated. And I go, how did you get that? And we started talking, and I go, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. And they had just happened to have an opening at that point at that radio station.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that might be kind of fun. But then I found out I had to do it in 2 weeks. I had to figure out the entire thing in 2 weeks and have guests. And that was very complicated to learn. You had to do all the editing, all the music, all the ads, all the everything from scratch and get, a lot of guests in a very short amount of time. So that was challenging, but I kind of liked it, because it's very fun to me to try and figure something out. But I had a lot of connections for guests because I had met so many people just through all of my past experiences from speaking, consulting, working at Forbes and different things. And I had a pretty good connected network on LinkedIn already. So, I had actually a lot of people started contacting me once they realized I had a show. And before I knew it, I was booking 6 months ahead, and I had to turn people down because I didn't want to make people wait 6 months, because who knows what your calendar is like that far ahead. So it took off a lot more than I was kind of just playing, to be honest with you, just to see it would be kind of fun to do. And it has been just so much fun because I've met some of the most interesting people. I mean, people you would never meet otherwise. You get to spend time with, like I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for doing this. And this is fun, because you get to meet very fascinating people.
That is absolutely correct. And I'd like to thank God for getting into the mindsets of the Google people over there at that establishment, because I know a couple of years back they basically changed the whole game by buying YouTube, and now YouTube with Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all of these are pretty much video platforms to showcase your talents. And if it wasn't for God getting into you doing your own syndicated radio show and you publishing your material on YouTube, we wouldn't be actually talking right now. You wouldn't be on my show right now.
That's funny. Which show did you find originally of mine on YouTube?
Well, actually, I came across a fascinating interview that you did with Kenneth Fisher.
Yeah.
And you did a phenomenal interview with Dr. Steve Kerr. And when I heard those interviews, I was blown away. And I said, I have to reach out to Dr. Diane to get on my program.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad I'm here, and I'm very interested in what you do.
Well, I love basically getting into the mindsets of influential leaders, and I know you have that same passion as well. Dr. Diane, can you explain to the audience in your own influential way, what do billionaires and hectomillionaires do on a consistent, regular basis that unfortunately broke entrepreneurs just don't do?
It seems they do a lot of reading. I mean, it seems that I went out to dinner this week with Naveen Jain, and I was asking him a lot of questions about that. He and my husband and I were talking about his companies and all that he's doing, and he's just so fascinating because he's going to be landing on the moon this year. He's trying to cure disease from, the pathogens in your gut, and he just reads everything he can about whatever it is he goes into. And in fact, he was saying he likes to go into companies and industries that he doesn't even know yet, because he thinks it's better to go in with a clear mind and not have things you've learned that maybe you think you already know, that if you just go in and read everything you can about something new, that you actually do better. And I mean, I interviewed Craig from Craigslist, Craig Newmark. I've interviewed so many people that are just, who are so, fascinating, and you do ask them, and it seems like they do a lot of reading more than anything else. They just want to learn everything they can about what they're doing, and they hire people to do the stuff they don't like. If they're strategic thinkers, they hire more tactical people to do the stuff that they're not good at. So you got to figure out what you're good at, and then surround yourself with people for the stuff that you're not good at to get to the point where you can be that kind of a success.
Wow. Yes, you must surround yourself around powerful leaders, because that energy rubs off on you, and money is simply energy. Well,
when you ask them really about the money aspect, especially if you watch my interview with Ken Fisher, money isn't anything he was really striving. It just came with the territory of what he was doing, what he likes. And I think that's kind of the thing. Same with Craig Newmark, and all these really successful people. They weren't really doing it for the money.
Right. Exactly. They was actually doing it for the impact and the value that they wanted to basically create for the world.
Right. So, and Naveen was funny because he says, it's actually easier to run a $1 billion company than a $1 million company. And I said, well, I'm going to have to take your word for that. But I think he's got a point, though. Things do become less complicated at scale sometimes if you get to a certain point.
Yes, Naveen was pretty much revealing a lot of underground value to my audience about your gut controls your brain. And
right.
He kind of reminds me of Elon Musk, where they basically want to, create different environments on the moon.
Right. And, yeah, he actually spoke. I was at a meeting this week where Tony Robbins and all these big names, and he was one of the speakers, and he really gave a great talk. Everybody got up and gave him a standing ovation because he just has a lot of drive for what he wants to accomplish. He's the first private company to get approval to actually land on the moon, and he thinks he's going to do it this year. So it'll be curious. I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to do that. That'd be quite impressive.
Oh, yes, it will be quite impressive. And also, that'll definitely get the attention of people all over the world where they might be interested in wanting to go to the moon as well.
Yeah, we always thought it had to be government-sponsored, and now we're getting more independent, people, companies doing these things, and it's amazing what they can accomplish. So I'm really looking forward to the next decade to see what people are going to be able to do. Elon Musk of the world and all of them, they're just fascinating to me.
Yes, most definitely. Earlier you said that billionaires, they basically hire other people to basically do these tasks in regards to what they don't like to do in their current business.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Let's talk about delegation. Now, I know the minimum wage of a millionaire is around $524 an hour. So I always tell my audience, what can you delegate for $524 an hour? Or you can go way beyond that. What can you delegate that's within your current budget? How important it is for entrepreneurs and business leaders to delegate tasks out that they're not currently good at so they can just focus on increasing their revenues in their businesses.
Delegating is a really tough thing for a lot of people because you have to take the time to find the people, that fit the best people to give these tasks to. And a lot of people don't like to let go of things because they like the control. But there are so many things that you just have to focus on the things that are making you the most money that you think, or the most, success, or whatever it is that you think that only you could really do that other people couldn't do, and it's just as easily. And for me, I find that it's not for just billionaires or millionaires. I mean, it's anybody in the, leadership positions. They have to delegate, and it's something you got to think about in terms of not just for you. You've got to think about the people who follow you. You want to develop them. And if you do everything for them, you're not developing them. You're just doing it for them, and they can't go to the next position because they haven't really learned the skills. And I think a lot of the things that we need to be teaching people or helping people with who work for us are soft skills. It's not just delegating. It's not just teaching them hard skills, like how to run computers or, how to do certain tasks. It's soft skill development that is causing the problem with so many people in companies. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on emotional intelligence, and I really am a big believer in developing interpersonal skills, empathy, all the things that fall in the area of emotional intelligence. But there's so many other things, listening, communication skills. All these things are problems in companies. That's why we only have a third of the workplace being engaged, because they don't really feel a sense of emotional engagement with their jobs, because they're not being told they're doing well. They're not being, really appreciated. There's so many aspects to what would make people more effective at work. So we need to delegate, but we also need to improve how we communicate with them, and by developing their behaviors, that's one of the most important things we need to do.
I love that phenomenal word, emotional intelligence and engagement. That's extremely important if you want to empower your team that's currently working at your company. And you have to develop a phenomenal culture that people wants to be a part of, because that culture starts to get infectious. For example, the owner of his phenomenal brand, Tony Hsieh of Zappos, they develop a culture, and if the bad apple spoils the bunch with the culture, they will pay you $2,000, Dr. Diane, just to leave because they don't feel as though you fit into their culture. Isn't that something?
Well, it is something to look at the different cultural, values and things that each company embrace. I mean, I don't know if you had seen Dwyer Owens on your show, but she was an interesting person. She had been on TV on different shows, and she wrote the book Values, Inc., and I thought that she had some interesting insight of just how they make sure that their culture is embraced throughout every aspect of their corporate company meetings. I mean, just everything. That she goes into great detail in her book. And I think that culture is such a huge topic right now because it ties into why we have poor engagement, a lot of the issues at work. So if the main thing with culture is that if it's not embraced from the CEO level on down, we need to get it from the top. And if the problem's at the top and the CEO doesn't see that they have a problem, then that's the culture's in big trouble in the company. So you can do all you want from the bottom up, and it doesn't seem to be as effective. You really need to make sure that the leader embraces the importance of culture.
Wow. This is an incredible interview, Dr. Diane. I appreciate you coming on my show today.
Well, thank you. This has been really interesting. I am very fascinated in what you do, Arthur.
Well, I'm fascinated with what you do as well, and actually our missions is parallel, and I appreciate you creating phenomenal value and publishing that phenomenal value to the world, and you definitely are a value creator. Thank you. Dr. Diane, let's talk about the word entrepreneur. Now, the word entrepreneur means entreprendre, and it was a Latin word, and it was invented in the 15th century in France. And a gentleman by the name of John Baptist, he invented the word, and over 300 years later, that word still exists, which is entrepreneur. So entre means between, and prendre means to take. So it means to take lower productivity and increase it to higher productivity. Can you explain to the audience, Dr. Diane, how are you increasing your productivity in your businesses?
Well, it's really important, I think, for any entrepreneur to be around other entrepreneurs who have gone to the next level. If you continue to surround yourself with people that are at your level or they have not achieved your level, you're not going to grow to the same extent that you will if you go to people who have done it. I see too many people trying to reinvent the wheel when it'd be so much easier to just go to somebody who's invented the wheel and just say, hey, how'd you do that? And I don't think there's a problem with going and joining certain networking groups to learn more. I mean, I think, again, you got to read everything that you can in your industry to find out more of how to get to the next level. And that's the kind of things I do. I do attend different networking groups. I'm part of the C-Suite Advisors group. I attended the Genius Network this weekend, which is Joe Polish's group. That's where was, and Tony Robbins and those guys were all there. And C-Suite, that's Jeffrey Hazlett. He's been on my show. Jeffrey Hazlett's group. Jeff's great, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just, you just meet people. Jeff's been on my show too, and he's been really great to introduce me to other people within that network. And some of these groups, especially for people who are consulting or writing or different things that they do, are really great to get them in front of the next level of customer. So it just depends on the type of business you do. And I think networking is hugely important. Yes, you definitely have to network, and when you have the right relationships, your network is your net worth. Well, it's so it's so much easier to meet people now. I mean, social media sites and LinkedIn and all the different ways to meet people. It's never been easier to network. So I agree with you,
Dr. Diane. Let's talk about video. Now, I know a couple years back, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion. So video is hot right now. Can you explain to the audience the power of using video? And should entrepreneurs and business leaders use video to expand their brand?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, it's interesting to look at the different ways that they've used video. I've had a lot of Facebook experts or Twitter experts or all LinkedIn experts, everybody on my show that talks about, they talk about different ways they've used video. I mean, I know Facebook Live is getting bigger now. I think YouTube is continuing to be so important to have short videos where people can find out more information, to just keep continuing a funnel of content. If you're trying to get people back to your site, I mean, you have to have a lot of content, and it's got to be updated continually. And I think that so many people, they put out a few things here and there, and they go, well, I've got a video here or there, and I've got, every once in a while I write a blog, or every once in a while I do this. But you have to have it consistently updating, because I wrote a brand publishing course as part of my work at Forbes School of Business. I had based it off of the Publisher Parish report that they had created, Bruce Rogers wrote, and it was very fascinating to look at the challenges that companies have with trying to get their brand recognition out there. Even the CMOs are frustrated with, there's so many different ways to reach people through, different sites, different vendors, different formats. And it's something that everybody struggles with, but everybody pretty much agrees. You want to be where your customers are. Mm-hmm. And if your customers are on LinkedIn, then you want to be on LinkedIn. If your customers are on Facebook, you want to be on Facebook. You want to be where they are. And you can put your videos on YouTube and, of course, link them to the other sites. And, that's what you really have to work on, making sure that your videos are effective, that, you could test them out to see how many people are watching certain ones, which ones are working. If they're not working, maybe, adjust based on that. Always have your website and your information in them, and send them to a landing page where you can capture their information so you get more. Anytime you offer them free information, free this, free that, because that's what you're just educating people, and people appreciate that. And the people who are the most successful have a lot of free content that they offer, and they're not looking for anything in place of that.
So once people like you, respect you, and trust you, that's when their minds are made up and they want to invest in you because you are your brand?
Right. I think so. I mean, of course, especially the smaller individual entrepreneur level, you're trying to get to know people and establish a reputation, and trust is huge, yeah.
So your brand is your promise.
You can look at what happens to a brand when it's been tarnished the things we wouldn't have expected maybe this year with Wells Fargo or Uber or some of the things that we've been seeing, that it's you get something out there, it's hard to change people's minds once they've heard that. And I mean, once your phone catches on fire or something happens, to rebuild what the people's perception of your products and your brand is huge. So I think, you think of case studies of how bad things happen in companies. I mean, a lot of companies have things that happen, maybe their fault or not their fault. Think of the Tylenol problem years ago, but think of how they handled it. They met it face on, and they were often listed as a positive case study for how you deal with negative press, right? Right. And so if, replacing the CEO at Uber, they're trying to fix the culture, they're trying to address it. It's all how you handle your brand, and you have to realize that and once things are out there, they're out there forever now because of the internet, but you can recover if you do the right thing.
Wow. Dr. Diane, I appreciate you coming on my show today because the whole premise of my show is to educate entrepreneurs and business leaders on a national, international scale that they can live the life that they truly desire, but they have to be open to these important principles. So I don't like what I see what's on the news, so I create my own news.
I like that. It's kind of what I'm doing too. So it's fun, Arthur, because we learn so much and we get it right from the mouth, right? So that's the best.
Dr. Diane, I wrote down some powerful words, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, so you can rate them in your own influential way. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I like a good game. All right, go ahead.
Accountability.
Oh, that's 5. That's the most, right? 5's the highest. Okay, I want to make sure I got the scale right. Yes, 5.
Perseverance.
Well, I'm going to want to give them all 5s, but I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay. Health.
Well, of course, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, so it's got to be a 5.
Wealth.
That's a lot lower for me. Wealth comes with everything else, so I'll give it a 3.
Building great relationships.
Well, it's got to be a 5 because if you do that, everything else comes.
Family.
Well, that's 5, unquestionably.
Love.
That's right up there, 5.
Key performance indicators.
You're giving me all ones that are important, so it's hard not to give you all. I'll give you a 4.
Value.
Well, that's got to be a 5.
Integrity.
5.
Success.
That's subjective, so I'm going to give that lower because that's not what I'm aiming for as much as, okay, I'll give it 4.
Sales.
Sales. Well, if you don't have good sales, you don't have any income coming in. So that's kind of a blanket term. So, it would be a 5. It's hard to just answer it based on just one word, but I'll give it a 5.
Marketing.
Marketing is pretty important, but I would say I'd give it a 4.
Branding.
Branding's pretty important. That's right up there with marketing. I'll give it a 4.
All right, that was good. That was real good.
Thank you. Did I pass? Did I fail? How to do? Is it a sliding scale? How do I get graded on that?
Oh, I'm going to give you a 10.
Thank you. There you go. I hope the scale's 1 to 10.
Dr. Diane, can you explain to the audience exactly where they can find you?
Well, I am everywhere. If you just look up Dr. Diane Hamilton, all one word, DrDiane Hamilton is my Twitter handle, but I'm mostly on LinkedIn, and I have a Facebook page, and I'm on Instagram, all the different sites. They can always go to my website, though. That's probably the best way to find me. So it's drdianehamilton.com, and if they want to hear the past episodes, they could go to drdianehamilton.com/episodes. And they could get on iTunes, of course. Not only on the radio, on iTunes as a podcast as well.
To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend getting involved with the phenomenal Dr. Diane Hamilton. Go to her website. She has incredible content that can take your mindset and your business to a whole nother level. Dr. Diane, you've been breaking down some phenomenal underground information to me and my listeners, and I really do appreciate it. You wrote a phenomenal book called How to Reinvent Your Career. Can you explain to the listeners, do you receive a lot of royalties from your books? And would you say that your books is your business card?
Well, you read my blog, huh? That a lot of people are saying that the book is the new business card. I would say I agree that the book can be as important now. Everybody's writing books now, so it is kind of becoming the new business card. The Reinvent Your Career book was written before I wrote It's Not You, It's Your Personality, which I think I would say It's Not You, It's Your Personality would be my most successful book. It was actually required reading at university here in Arizona because what I think is important about that book is that it explains the different personality assessments and how to use what we can learn about personality to get along in the workplace. I go into Myers-Briggs and emotional intelligence and DISC and all the different assessments, but what it is it was meant for post-boomers to understand kind of personality assessments, but it's helpful to boomers as well. It's written in a way that kind of makes it more playful to understand what we need to know about different personality assessments and their value. I think what we see is if you take people and you put them into boxes, though, that's not really that effective. I don't want to stereotype people, but I want them to learn the different aspects of personality and why we have certain preferences for certain things. An introvert may be energized by certain things that is different from an extrovert, for example. And I think by learning about different personality tests and assessments, you can learn a lot about you, but more importantly, I think you can learn about other people because I think we have a better understanding of our own emotions than we do of why other people react certain ways. And I think that if you only look at it from your own perspective, you're not going to be interacting well with other people.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Now, you wrote 3 powerful books. And we have entrepreneurs and business owners that is on the show right now. They basically want to publish their first intellectual property, which would be their book.
Right.
What would you suggest in regards to, should they actually self-publish their book, or should they get with a major publisher to publish their first book?
Well, that's a hard question because I think when I first wrote my first book, I had an agent, and she wanted me to write about, she kind of wanted me to be like Susie Orman and write about finance because I'd written up some finance information at that time. I was writing articles for Investopedia, and I really did not want to just focus on finance. I was much more interested in behaviors. And so I ended up, instead of going with the major publishing house, I went ahead and self-published. And I really liked the control you have with self-publishing. I think it's harder if you're thinking, I think a lot of people think it's really easy to just get in with a big publishing house, and it's very hard because you have to have quite a platform in order to get them to notice you. And now, of course, I have a pretty good platform with having a radio show, having all my websites, all my connections, all my things. But if anyone's listening and they don't have a platform, they're not going to be looked at very easily by a publishing house. And I think it's really good to go self-publishing in that case because you can have a lot of control. You can develop your ideas and you can promote it in your own way. Because even if you go with a big name publisher, they're going to expect you to do all the same stuff. They want you to speak and they want you to go out and promote the book. And so it's not really that much more work on you to self-publish because you're doing all that for them anyway. Plus you're getting the full royalties. The problem is if you don't have a big following, it's very challenging. So if you're considering writing a book, you really need to develop your platform. That's the foundational aspect of what it takes to be successful with a book. If you need to have a lot of network connections on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on every platform, Twitter, everything where you would want people to find you, they want to see that you know people and that you've got a way to reach them. So that's probably the biggest thing you need to work on, because having a book without anybody to to know about it. It's tough to get sales from that.
That's absolutely correct. And I know when you actually get involved with a major publisher, they basically want you to have a strong name in the industry, and they're going to look at your following, and if you don't have, 20,000 or more people following you, they don't want to get behind you because they think that when you publish the book, it's actually going to be a flop.
Yeah, they really want to see that you've got a following. It's huge for them. But if you had like a very unique book that is so different than anything out there, I mean, there have been people who have gotten around it, but it has to be so unique. And if they have somebody in the market for what you're trying to write. I mean, even with my original book that she wanted to write about, me to write about finance, that it wouldn't have really mattered how big my following was. They said, Susie Orman pretty much had that market tied up, and they weren't looking for another one. So you'd kind of have to find a very specific niche and just be very different than somebody else out there. If you're writing a book, there's a lot of books out there that are very similar. It's going to be sure to look at you, even if you have a big following. I mean, unless you're a really well-known name, like Oprah or something. I mean, she can write anything she wants.
Wow. So when you develop a strong brand can command higher fees. Right.
You can get. Brand awareness is huge right now, and it's interesting to look at some of the people who have had on my show that really started from nothing and then went and built their brand by just blogging and tweeting and spending. I mean, some of these guys spend like 12 hours a day doing it. I mean, it's not easy work, but once you get a following and establish yourself, people. If they see that you're out there and you're doing a lot of things, it starts to grow really fast at that point.
Dr. Diane, what is your thoughts on how do you feel about paid media versus organic media?
Let me think about that one. Well, give me an example of which ones you would give me 2 examples, and I'll tell you if I think that they were effective, because there's so many examples of that.
Well, organic media would be Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and paid media would be you get in front of people's faces faster. Right.
But my point, I guess what I'm asking is, if on Facebook, are you saying is it better to post a video that you just created on your own, or would you pay to promote it? Is that what you mean?
Right.
More
like
that
if you're
way?
doing like Facebook ads, or like
because
some people for their regular page, once you reach 5,000 friends, you got to create another whole page so you can get more friends.
Yeah, right. Well, it's very, some of these things in terms of promoting ads, there's different, when you're saying paid for ads, you can start from scratch and have somebody create a whole advertising campaign, and that's one kind of paid for ad, and that's different from creating your own content and then promoting it. So that's why I was trying to differentiate what you meant by that. If you promote what you've already put out there, like through Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, things to get exposure in addition to just your normal organic reach, it can be very effective. You just have to test different, take each time you try it and test it to see how much reach you get. Because if it doesn't work on one posting, it could work on another one. They'll turn you down if you have too much pictures or you don't have enough wording. Sometimes some of these sites like Facebook are, they give you like little tips to tell you this is probably not going to be worth your money because you have too much picture in this and not enough content, kind of thing. So you've got to play around with whether it's effective or not. I found some of them have been very effective for me on the promoted ads. I don't do a lot of that because I don't really need to based on what I'm doing, but I've seen other people do it and it worked really well. As far as, if you're looking for a major company, of course, they're going to go from serious, paid for advertising campaign. So that's a whole nother ball game. But as far as if you're talking about entrepreneurs and what they're doing, startups and that type of thing, I think to begin with, yes, I would use some of the promoted ads, because I think they're really great because you can be real specific as to your audience and your target of who you want to reach, which you never could do things like that in the past. It was not as easily. And then in the last years, they've really made that very specific and wonderful to get your message out.
Well, I love these social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and actually Facebook, they actually bought Instagram. And basically, your raving fans are on these platforms, and they are delivery systems, especially with email marketing. That's a delivery system.
Right.
And I love learning from powerful business leaders with the right information. And when I'm driving, I let my driving time become my learning time.
Yeah, I do too. I like that. I mean, you can learn so much. It's amazing. Yes,
most definitely. Dr. Diane, let's talk about the phenomenal word money. Now, I know money is not value. Money is just a facilitator to do transactions. Can you explain to the audience, how would you define money?
How would I define money? Well, everybody values money in a different way. And I asked Ken Fisher, how he defined success. I said, now that you're a billionaire, and he goes, well, that's one way of defining it. And to him, that's not how he defines success at all. Mm-hmm. So to some people, money is a value, a measure of their success. For other people, it's just something that comes along as part of what they're doing. And I think, there's a lot of studies out there that, show that money doesn't motivate everybody, that some people it's not at all motivational for them, and other people it's everything to them, so it just depends on the individual what money means to them. For me, I do a lot of things for free because I like to do them. I do them for very little money because it's something that means something to me. I mean, teaching, for example, nobody gets rich teaching, right? So to me, though, that's adding value to other people, and that's a very rewarding thing to me. And that is one of the things that I've done the longest, because to me that was worth more.
So money is a byproduct of the value that you uncover?
Right.
Dr. Diane, I have to ask you this phenomenal topic because my audience love this phenomenal topic, which is marketing. Can you explain to the listeners, what is your definition of marketing, and what does marketing mean to you?
Well, I think a lot of people like to think of marketing and sales together, and they're very different things. Marketing is getting the messages out there through different networks and different aspects of social media. You get an overall brand and different things that they're making customers aware of, and that's different than the salespeople that actually get down and get on the phone and dial for dollars and get the actual sales in hand. And I think marketing is, we always know, you're dealing with the product, the price, and all the different P's, that we hear about. And I think that it's a very important thing for marketing and sales to interact more, because I used to see a lot of companies where they kind of didn't know what one was doing in the other area, and one of my jobs when I was in pharmaceutical sales, I worked on a marketing team. Even though I was in sales, they had us go back and work with marketing to look at what their message was, what they were developing in their brochures and for their latest campaign, right?
Wow.
So I would go out into the field and I would take these brochures and do details, is what they called it. When you sold to a doctor, it was called detailing them. And I would detail them based on what the message they were trying to deliver. And I thought it was a really effective use of my time to learn what marketing was trying to accomplish because there was a disconnect before that of what we were doing in the field in sales and what they were trying to get as far as the message out in marketing. So I've noticed a lot of marketing and sales being better communicating in other companies since then. And I think that it continues to improve. I've been to a lot of the marketing events. I went to the Forbes CMO Summit where all the the top heads of marketing went about a year ago. And it was really fascinating to see how many of them there were great people and inspirational people there talking about their frustrations, though, of how difficult marketing is now, because you're trying to get your message out to people and just instant timing, because of how everybody's an instant gratification, society now. So you've got all these people, though. It's such a big scale that you need to get this message out, but people want to receive their content in a very meaningful way to them, so like individualized, meaningful content, and that can be hard to do at scale. So marketing has all these vendors, that they have to work with to create the content, to distribute the content, to make sure it's posted here and followed up there, and it's the amount of vendors available is staggering, and that's why I liked Bruce Rogers' Publisher Parish report that we used to create the brand publishing course, which was, all marketing. Because we got to look at what he did. He interviewed a lot of the top CMOs out there to find out what they were using and why and what was effective for it. So going back to what we said before, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You found out what's working for everybody else. So that's just like networking around people and going to people and asking them what's working for you, and you're finding out what will work based on what they tell you. So that's why I thought that was such a great course, because it's avoiding making you have to test out all these vendors and figure out what to do, because it's overwhelming.
Wow.
Yeah.
So marketing done right is the quickest path to the sale.
Well, it certainly helps, and it certainly helps to have good salespeople that are willing to do what in a respectable way, long-term relationship sales. I mean, you've got different generations now that don't like to be sold to the same as other generations. You're selling to a boomer, it's different than selling to a millennial. And I give a lot of talks about generational differences. I just last week gave one, and the whole place, everyone there, afterwards they came up to me and go, this is such a huge problem for us, because the boomers and we got a whole company that's made up of boomers, but we're selling to millennials or vice versa. And so when you're selling, you have to be able to sell based on understanding each generation's preferences. And our preferences are somewhat influenced. I mean, I can't say all boomers are the same or all millennials are the same, but we do experience things in our lives. I experienced, in my talk, I was talking about, when I was in grade school, we had to hide under our desks to practice if the Russians were going to bomb us. They thought this half-inch plastic was going to save us, But that influenced my perception of the world, of what was happening at the time, just as 9/11 influenced millennials. And each generation has something that they grew up with that has impacted their perception of the world. And it's the same thing with sales, that the way they like to be sold to is different per generation. So you have to learn your customer where they are. I mean, if you're, like I said previously, you have to sell where they are. You want to be on LinkedIn. If they're on LinkedIn, you want to be on YouTube. Or if they're on YouTube, you want to be where they are. And for example, I interviewed Ryan Bouchain, who has Crusoe, the celebrity dachshund. I don't know if you saw that interview. It was so much fun to interview him, by the way, because Crusoe's got 2 million Facebook followers, and so on Facebook is where he needs to be promoting his products, because everybody follows him there. And JP Sears is another one. I met him this weekend. He's huge right now. If everybody's following his videos, and if he's not promoting himself in the right location, he's not going to get any sales for his books and the different things they have. So you just have to be where your customers are and create content in the way that fits their, their need based on their generation and everything else.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
So, content is king, but also cash is king?
Right. That's right. Content is king was the big message at the summit. Everybody says it, because it is. It continues to be king.
I always tell my listeners that every business is a content business. I mean, when you look at, McDonald's, even though I don't eat fast food, but when you look at McDonald's, people recognize that brand because of the golden arches.
Right.
It's the same way with Steve Jobs and his partner Steve Wozniak. Well, Apple changed the game. And before the iPhones, remember, it was the BlackBerries that was dominating the cell phone industry. And before the BlackBerries, it was called the Palm Pilots. Right. So basically, before he passed away, unfortunately he passed away with Steve Jobs, he had $119 billion in the bank, cash, because of the Apple brand.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting with the brand because Wozniak was just here in town. I met him a couple weeks ago because he's announcing his new technology school, WozU. And, his name is obviously is a brand recognition. And I imagine that he will be very successful if he does it right, of course. You can't just have a name. But he's already so far ahead of the game just from the name recognition, which we also had at the Forbes School of Business. You've got Steve, such a reputable brand, such a great guy.
Yes.
And they're both men I would consider very good people and trying to do, something wonderful with the brand that they've already created.
Well, Steve Wozniak would be a phenomenal guest on your program.
Yeah, I don't know if he likes to be interviewed. I have a video I took of him when we were talking. He rode in on one of those segways into the meeting. He was funny. He says he plays Segway polo. I think he said they have games on that thing. But he was a really interesting interview. Actually, Jeff Hazlett interviewed him that night, and it was fun to watch because he's really got a cute personality, and Jeff was having a hard time keeping him under control because he was really fun, playful, and Jeff was really funny because he was like, I think I lost control of this interview a long time ago. But it'll be interesting to see what he does with his new brand and his new school.
Well, when I listened to that phenomenal interview that you did with Dr. Steve Kerr, and I know that he was a major heavy hitter at Goldman Sachs,
yes,
can you explain to the audience, how did that interview come about?
Well, I worked with the board of advisors at the Forbes School of Business, helped arrange things and coordinate, and part of that was working with Steve Kerr and Steve Forbes and Rich Karlgaard, a lot of really impressive people, and I got to meet Steve through that. Mark Sills, I'm trying to think, there quite a few have been on my show actually because of that. And Steve is such a nice guy. He's really very interesting and supportive. I was fascinated. I mean, what he's done in his life is so impressive. I mean, he's just an amazing guy, but he's very generous in giving helpful advice. He has a very good heart, and it was fun talking to him about his work with Jack Welch and some of the experience he had because he was big with GE and so he was a great guest, and he doesn't usually do that. I think a couple of the people I got on my show, they were I probably bugged them into it from just being around them, and they knew me pretty well. They probably didn't normally want to do that kind of thing, but they were really wonderful to be on the show, and I really appreciated having them there.
Wow. Dr. Diane, let me ask you this. When I'm having a powerful conversation with a successful entrepreneur or business leader, how would I know that it would be good prospects for you in regards to what you are currently passionate about?
So are you saying like you, the collective you, or are you talking about me for my show? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, the reason why I was asking you this phenomenal question, because I know that you basically have a phenomenal show which is called Take the Lead, and I know that you basically created phenomenal business programs, and for the people that are in my network, I know that they would love to work with you. But when it comes to you working with people or people coming on your show, what do you actually look for that will be a certain criteria that you can connect with?
Well, it has to be a very unusual story of, like I had Roya Maboob on, who was also, I worked with at Forbes, she was Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of the world. And she had an amazing story because she had created a company for women to become educated in technology so they can get online jobs. And these were all women in Afghanistan. And nobody was doing this for these women, and she's under 30 years old doing this kind of thing. And so if I hear a really phenomenal story like that, I try to have people who've really gone way above and beyond. The Naveen Jains of the world who are landing on the moon this year, Steve Forbes, who, he's a god in journalism and media. And, it's got to be somebody, I guess, because I think there's just so many stories out there. I don't have room to have everybody's story on there, so I don't do like health and wellness. I don't do exercise type of things as much. It's really very business oriented people who have either done something crazy impressive that would help inspire other people to emulate them.
So facts tell, but a great story always sells.
Yeah. It's just a success story of somebody that's done it and learned from it, and what they learned from it is always very fascinating. Usually everyone on my show has won some kind of a great award. I've had a lot of the Hall of Fame speakers on the show. I've had a lot of the Forbes 30 under 30s. So usually they're Wall Street Journal bestsellers or New York Times bestsellers, and it's hard because I can't have too many people because I'm booking so far ahead. So I have to be very selective, and it's some stories just move me sometimes. I'm like, wow, that's just interesting. I've had some pretty inspiring TEDx and TED speakers both. Kari Anderson, she's got some amazing work with her TED Talks, and I think Cheryl Hunter had an inspiring story because she was raped and left for dead, and she now helps people deal with, overcoming that type of thing.
Wow.
Some of these people, what they've gone through and what they share and what they are capable of, it motivates me just to be better. And I think if I feel a sense of motivation from what I hear, then that is something that really makes me want to hear their story and share it.
Yes, I love getting into the mindsets of phenomenal business leaders because they've been there, done that, and they're still relevant in the business industry. And I actually had Marty Zwellen on my program.
Oh, Marty, he's a friend of mine.
Along with John Tanney. They were both on my show.
Oh, yeah. John Tamley I interviewed as part of the Forbes School Business Speaker Week, and he was really great to do a great video interview. You can see it on YouTube. He was wonderful. And Marty, actually, I did some videos with him that we used in courses at the school at Forbes. He's an entrepreneur leader. He has startupprofessionals.com as his site, and he was nice enough to do 6 weeks worth of little videos that we put into the courses for the students. And he and I both spoke for Forbes years ago and met there, and then I had him on my show as well. So he's fascinating. He's a good guy, and everybody you've had, it sounds like we've had a lot of the great people on our shows, and they're also inspirational.
Yes, they most definitely are, and they definitely are adding phenomenal value to the world. Dr. Diane, can you explain to the audience, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, it's so funny. I was asking Naveen that this weekend, and he kept saying he likes to read and different things. And I was trying to think of what I would say if people ask me that, because I do a lot of different things, but I'm pretty active. My husband and I do a lot of hiking and biking. I'm in Arizona. We have Camelback Mountain here. It's a pretty mean hike. I've hiked out of the Grand Canyon before, things like that.
Wow.
I like rock climbing.
You're outdoors woman.
I've done some scuba diving and different things. Zip lining was a little scary, and so was scuba diving. I tend to not like those as well, but I try to do something a little bit outside my comfort zone just to see if I like it. Mm-hmm. But I do like to hike a lot. I'm a pretty active person because you work so hard, you got to get a little bit of a break on the weekends, and we tend to do a lot of outdoor stuff. But I do love the movies. I'm a movie fan.
So you're a movie buff.
I am. I like sci-fi comedies, type of things.
Wow.
I saw Thor yesterday. That was pretty good. Did like that.
Wow.
But I like to see movies. We see a lot.
Well, I love movies too, and laughter is the best medicine. Right.
I do love the comedies, so I'm never doing nothing. Let's put it that way. I'm always doing something.
Well, you love staying busy, and you love being productive. And I have a simple mantra: no white spaces on your calendar.
That's right. I'm looking at mine right now, and there's not much white on there. I'll tell you, it's pretty packed.
Dr. Diane, do you think you was put on this planet to educate the masses about engagement and emotional intelligence?
Well, I haven't really got an answer for that because I'm not sure why I was put on this planet, but I would like to think that we all are here to improve, ourselves and others. And I like to think of how I can share information, because I think in a lot of jobs I've had to figure out things on my own, and I started many years ago just going up to people who were new and saying, I know this, do you want it? Because you don't have to figure it out now because I already figured it out. And people would appreciate it so much that I started to like to share content, because I thought, well, why make them figure it out when I've already done it? So I do think teaching people other things and helping them is really important, because it will all just improve if everybody gets smarter, and it helps everybody.
What would you say is your outside-the-box intrinsic value when you are educating your audience on your phenomenal syndicated radio show?
Well, I think people who are on my show say that I ask them questions that most people don't ask them. I've had people say, I've been interviewed 1 million times, nobody's ever asked me that. And I get a lot of people that say things like that to me. I think I like to talk to people just like we're in a conversation if you're at a dinner party kind of thing. And instead of just, some people like to give questions. You notice I didn't give you any questions to ask me today, because I think it's better if you just chat like how we're doing. Yeah. So I think you get to be much more interesting conversations if it's just like a conversation where you just ask them the things you're interested in about them. And sometimes I don't ask some questions. I wish I could. I don't want to put them on the spot.
Wow.
And if it just, I sometimes after the interview's over, if there's something I thought about asking and I think, I don't want to put them on the spot, I'll ask them off the air, if it's nothing too intrusive, of course. But I think it's just kind of fun to ask the questions you would ask if you're at a dinner party.
That is absolutely true. And when you are at a dinner party and you having a phenomenal conversation, that engagement increases, because when you start connecting with the right person and they start revealing that phenomenal information, the right information converts into life-changing transformation.
Right.
Dr. Diane, do you have any last pearls of wisdom for the listeners?
Well, I just think that you're a fascinating guy, and I'm glad that you found me. I will look into your show in more detail because you really have an interesting assortment of people you've interviewed, and I think that I hope that everything that we talked about today can help your listeners, because I think that you obviously do your research, and I appreciate all the background you found on me. I'm sure you spent some time to learn all that, and I appreciate that, and I really enjoyed being on the show.
Oh, I appreciate you, Dr. Diane. I'd like to thank you once again, Dr. Diane Hamilton, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the listeners worldwide about your phenomenal show, Take the Lead, and about your phenomenal books, It's Not You, It's Your Personality, and How to Reinvent Your Career, and about emotional intelligence. I gladly appreciate it. You are a gift from God.
No, well, thank you, and I really enjoyed it, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Most definitely. I got to get you back on my show so we can get more in depth about engagement and emotional intelligence.
Well, I look forward to it.
To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend getting involved with the beautiful Dr. Diane Hamilton. You hear the passion that came through her voice on my show today. She broke down layman's terms about Facebook ads that companies uses. She broke down layman's terms about money. For some successful entrepreneurs, money measures success. She also broke down layman's terms about emotional intelligence and engagement, and that's extremely important if you want to excel to the next level. I highly recommend get involved with the phenomenal Dr. Diane Hamilton. Go to her website, drdianehamilton.com. She has incredible content and interviews that will take your mindset and your business to a whole nother level, but you have to implement what you learn. Execution is worship. Go to our website, drdianehamilton.com. That's Dr. Dr. Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Hamilton, HAMILTON.com. And I promise you, she will definitely take your mindset to a whole nother level, and you can definitely learn phenomenal strategies with her concepts in regards to emotional intelligence. I interview hecto-millionaires all over the world, and Dr. Diane Hamilton is by far the best that can educate each and every one of you on how you can grow your business and about emotional intelligence. So go to her website. You will not be disappointed, and she has a phenomenal brand. And check out her interviews that she's interviewed these successful billionaires and hecto-millionaires. So to everyone that's listening, remember that the strongest asset that each and every one of you have is your brain and what you think about and what you take action on that will become your reality, and your mentality creates your reality. May God bless each and every one of you, and bye for now. Thank you, Dr. Diane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a pleasant day, everyone. Here's another bonus tip. I hope this exclusive, powerful interview helped you fully understand on how you can actually build your brand through the power of great relationships. My great friend, successful businesswoman, award-winning speaker, nationally syndicated radio host, the beautiful Dr. Diane Hamilton. Dr. Diane Hamilton, she basically is the host of her nationally syndicated radio show, which is called Take the Lead. So in this interview, Dr. Diane Hamilton, she breaks down layman's terms about sales and marketing. Also in this interview, Dr. Diane, she breaks down layman's terms about her focus is on engagement. And that's extremely important if you want to influence your audience or your clients to the next level. Dr. Diane Hamilton, she also breaks down layman's terms about don't give up too easily. And when you are pursuing centers of influences and you want to build great relationships, you cannot give up easily. You have to keep moving forward. That way you will become highly successful. Dr. Diane Hamilton, she also breaks down layman's terms in this exclusive interview about how she loves interviewing people and much, much more. And she also, on her phenomenal syndicated radio show, she interviews billionaires and hecto-millionaires that have built strong businesses from all over the world. If you want to learn more about business, marketing, advertising, copywriting, scaling your business, building great relationships, investing in gold and silver, investing in real estate, or how to live a healthier life, you can contact me directly at 215-490-2516. That's area code 215-490-2516. Or you can email me at arthurrobinson, the number 18, @yahoo.com. That's Arthur, ARTHUR, Robinson, ROBINSON, the number 18, @yahoo.com. And I highly recommend listen to this exclusive interview over and over and over again so it can reinforce your learning. Once again, my name is Arthur Robinson Jr., and I highly recommend get involved with the phenomenal, the beautiful Dr. Diane Hamilton, and her website is drdianehamilton.com. Once again, my name is Arthur Robinson Jr. Thank you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Arthur Robinson Jr. from PowerfulInterviews.com, your number one resource for life-changing information you won't find anywhere else. Check out our blog for weekly updates and new powerful interviews. For more information or to contact Arthur, send an email to info@powerfulinterviews.com. That's info@powerfulinterviews.com.